Welcome back to the Holy Land Uncovered. Before the break, we saw a terrific report about Yemenite jewelry and a young woman who's taken up the ancient craft. Our reporter, Emily Francis, who filed that report, is now with me in the studio. Emily, great to have you on the show. Let's talk a little bit more about this particular jewelry form. Why did it come from Yemen? Starting there.
You know, it's really interesting, and in looking in the history, it's something very unique that goes back. They're saying the Jews, many of the Jews that have been there from biblical times, and it's something that dominated the 1700s till the 1900s. This tradition that was really kind of handed down from generation to generation, like bloodlines of men kept this tradition alive. And they say it was because in Yemen, in that region, is where there was a lot of gold and silver to mine. So it was a destination, even in biblical times, for mining gold and silver. So it was the natural, resource of the region.
And here, a little bit of Jewish history. Jews were often excluded from many professions in their host countries, we could say. And this was probably one of those fields that Muslims didn't want to take part in or work in.
That's right. And, listen, the vast majority were Jews because it was considered impure to be working with these metals. It was considered impure. So it was, of course, the Jews, and it subsequently became a problem when the big Aliyah, happened and the Yemenite Jews came here to Israel. There were no Jews left in Yemen, so now there are Muslims that are taking part in this craft. But they were also, interestingly, after the Aliyah, many of the Yemenite jewelers became like founding members and very involved in like the jewelry schools here in Israel.
Right, that's interesting too. Yeah. What I love about this story is that suddenly, women are making this jewelry. Right?
That's what makes it so beautiful. And, Sharon is such an inspirational young woman, too, because she didn't grow up with these stories. She found it later in life and then started digging deeper. Why was it just the men when this is ornamental jewelry that was literally made for weddings? And it wasn't, and like the talismans and the rings weren't handed down from mother to daughter. Like each wedding, it was a symbol of, being a higher class, and it was made to be original. But the women themselves were not the ones who took part in this craft.
Right, and now she's changing that. She finished what we saw in the piece, actually is a piece that she finished and we have here in the studio.
She did. She's so amazing. Like, she randomly was just kind of spontaneously working on the piece, and she was inspired and she finished it, and she, gave it to me to bring in the studio. And basically the filigree wire, I don't know how you could see it, but this is what's so unique to the style, is that each wire was handmade by her uncle. So she was able to work with some of this original handiwork, and it's so detailed and intricate just within the wires. And she uses a tool, as you saw in the report, to literally loop these pieces. And then she put in a diamond, and it's beautiful.
Yeah,
and in her shop is where she's doing all of the soldering, so it's right there before your eyes.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. And now, is there any religious or biblical reference to this kind of jewelry making, or did the Yemenites draw inspiration from a text?
It's interesting because in reading the text, reading about Queen of Sheba in Kings, in the portion of Kings, they talk about, as earlier in the frankincense piece, I did the same thing. She came bearing a lot of gifts when she came here, to meet with King Solomon and, all of the subsequent things that we hear of stories coming from the Bible. But yeah, she did pass through Yemen, it said, and brought the silver and the gold that were mined there, like frankincense and other things that specifically come from that region.
Amazing. This is what fascinates me about this place, is that, each person has the opportunity to kind of dig down and find somehow a piece of their personal history, and often things that they can bring back to life, like this craft, which is hundreds of years old, and now, now part of the modern Israeli jewelry scene, and probably, from here going out to the world.
And it's really how great for her, to be a woman and to learn it from her uncles, one who has since passed. So, it's kind of now or never to really, modernize this craft and to carry it forward. And it's beautiful seeing her work. Really? I wanted to get in and solder, but I'm too clumsy not to burn myself, so I didn't bother.